We begin tonight with new evidence presented in the trial of Kelvin Vickers, charged in the death of a Rochester police officer. Good evening, I'm Don Alhart. Today, the jury saw body camera video from the night before Officer Anthony Mazurkiewicz was shot and killed. Now, that's because Kelvin Vickers is also on trial for the deaths of two other men. 13 Web's Jackie appeared live now at the Hall of Justice, where jurors and Jackie, too, saw that video today.
I did, Don. Nikki Siplin, the mother of Ricky Collinge, tells me she just wants answers. Well, today she got some from the police officers who were the first to arrive to the scene of her son's brutal death.
I hadn't seen the body cam. This is the first time I've seen it. It was very difficult, it was excruciatingly painful to watch, hear, and see.
Just before 1 o'clock a.m. on July 20th, Rochester police officer Richard Schoen found Nikki Siplin's brother, Tyreek Burden, on North Clinton Avenue. Burden was suffering from a gunshot wound to his left leg. As he laid on the ground, he begged police to go check on his 19-year-old nephew, Ricky Collinge.
That just took me back to that moment when him crying, calling me, letting me know my son was dead.
Shortly before, Sergeant Matt Webster of the Rochester Police Department was in the RPD East Side office. He testified he heard several gunshots near North Clinton Avenue and Rauber Street. That's a block north of the office. Upon reviewing blue light camera footage, Webster says he saw three males exit a silver Dodge Caliber SUV. According to Webster, those three males began shooting eastbound down Rauber Street. According to Webster, that same car was found shortly after, burned in a driveway on Weil Street.
If you look at those photographs, you really can't tell what type of car it was. They're assuming it's this car. They couldn't make out, the pictures are coming from such a distance that you couldn't even make out the license plate in the back of the car.
Assistant District Attorney Perry Duckles hopes presenting evidence chronologically will be helpful to jurors.
We're kind of rounding out of July 19th and moving into July 20th. And then as soon as we're done with witnesses who are kind of laying the groundwork for those two incidences, then Ms. Dorley will start, the bulk of the presentation regarding what happened on the 21st.
Michael Sciano tells me his client, Kelvin Vickers, is paying attention and doing a lot of work to help the defense prepare their case. Trial will resume tomorrow.
Tuesday morning. Thanks so much for waking up with us. I'm Dan Schrack. It's 6:31 this September 26th. We'll get to Marty in just a moment. We do begin with that breaking overnight news in Rochester. One person hospitalized after an officer-involved shooting in the city. Now, this all began last night right around 9:45 with a report of shots fired on 7th Street and an officer chasing a vehicle that fled from that scene. Within the past 30 minutes, we have heard from Rochester Police Chief David Smith an update, more information on what happened after that chase. 13 Wham's Abby Fridman is live for us at the Public Safety Building. Abby, what can you tell us the chief said happened after that chase?
Yeah, Dan, the chief says it was a chaotic night in the city regarding that car chase and then that foot chase that went through several backyards. We're going to get to all of that in just a second, but here is what we've learned from police. They say they arrived to that scene of 7th Street where they saw a truck speeding away with its lights off. That's when they chased the truck, and eventually it crashed into a pole on 1st Street. Police say the suspect got out of the truck and started running. They chased him through several yards. The chief says that's when an all-out brawl began between the officer and the suspect. The officer actually had parts of his uniform and equipment ripped from his body. They say they watched the body cam video back. That's where they saw the officer tried to use his taser but was unsuccessful. That's when they say the officer fired his weapon, hitting the suspect in the upper body. I asked the chief how long of a fight this actually was. He couldn't give us an exact time frame, but did give us a closer idea of what it looked like.
Sitting there watching it, it felt like a long time to me watching it, and I'm sure it felt like an eternity to that officer, who, again, was alone in the backyards. It is very, very dark in that backyard. There was no light from any sources when I was back there except the light that we brought with us.
Police say they found a .25 caliber handgun, drugs, and another weapon in the truck that crashed back on 1st Street. Or rather 7th Street. The chief says there is also evidence of shots fired on 7th Street, which is where police were originally called to, like we said, Dan. Sorry, my mistake. That truck actually crashed on 1st Street. Here is what we know about the suspect, who again is in the hospital. He's a 26-year-old man who is well known to RPD. He was convicted back in 2019 for what police call an illegal possession of a handgun. Now, they say there was also an active warrant out for his arrest for leading police on another car chase. They say that happened less than a month ago. Dan?
All right, Abby, wondering, while you're there, any update on how that suspect is doing this morning? I believe you said still hospitalized, and how that officer involved in this shooting is doing.
Yeah, Dan, we got an update on both the suspect and the officer. The suspect is at Strong Hospital being treated for serious but non-life-threatening injuries, again, shot in the upper body. As for the officer, he spent quite a bit of time at Strong Hospital last night. Police say he was released. He's back home with his family this morning and recovering from injuries that he suffered during that all-out brawl. Again, like I said, part of his uniform ripped from his body along with his equipment and strewn around that backyard on 1st Street.
Active scene there. We will check back with you throughout this half an hour. Also tonight, families joining together in grief and calling for change on this National Day of Remembrance of murder victims.
Parents shouldn't have to bury their own kids, not at all.
Countless families in the city of Rochester have lost loved ones to violence. Tonight, they remembered them in a ceremony at a local church. 13 Wham's Carla Rogner was there and spoke to those families about the impact of those losses. Carla, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Matt. The families of victims make up a club that no one would choose to be a part of. Tonight, Rock the Peace organized an evening to bring them together and help each other heal.
These are some of the many faces of those lost to violence in Rochester. The families they left behind striving to keep their memories alive. Tatiana Bogar lost both of her sons to gun violence less than 3 years apart.
They were very much people person, their smiles, they loved everyone.
Lyshawn Curry was killed by a coworker in 2020. Her younger son, Anthony Miller Curry, was shot and killed on North Clinton Avenue this year, the weekend of the Puerto Rican Festival.
The impact has been very hard. We're numb. There's no feeling. It's just something, it's harder to deal with now.
She finds some solace in meeting other families dealing with similar heartbreak, like Kwanzaa Howard.
It's something positive to do, instead of just sitting around, sad and just thinking about what happened.
Her daughter, Jaquela, was killed in a mass shooting during a party on Pennsylvania Avenue in 2020. No suspects were ever identified.
She had amazing friends, and she was just doing positive things, going to college, just being a teenager.
Rock the Peace holds this ceremony every September 25th. Danita Forney has been helping to organize it for years.
This is, my passion. This is what I want to do for my community.
Her son Damari and his best friend were murdered when they were 15 in 2008. But the pain is still fresh.
Every day. It's not a day go by that I don't think about him.
These mothers have turned their grief to activism, speaking out and sharing their children's stories with the hopes that fewer faces are added to this memorial next year.
The families who have lost loved ones to violence say it's hard to watch it continue in the city. More than 40 homicides have been reported already this year.